Well, this is Joy News Prime here on the Joy News channel, also on myjoyonline.com and all our social media platforms, where we've been talking about Parliament today. And after that long break, which was supposed to be just for an hour, it looks like Parliament is back in session and the Speaker is taking his seat. It's a good time to take you back there. They were supposed to be deliberating on the ministerial appointees, whether they would be approved by the House, and a number of issues that they were supposed to be dealing with, including the 3 taxes as well. Let me take you live now for proceedings.
From east side, it presupposes that they are tired. They cannot even speak, allow 2 people to even speak. That is the more reason why we are saying that let's adjourn. Let's go home, then tomorrow we come with renewed vigor. Mr. Speaker, we have written, 7 people have already tabled their names, and we are yet to add 4 to make it 10. So if 10 people are going to contribute from this side, then 10 would contribute from that side. It's already 7:31. Our Muslim brothers have not even broken their fast. And tomorrow they will fast again. This is the more reason why on this side we are empathizing with our colleague Muslim brothers. Not so long ago, the Honorable Deputy Majority Whip, Honorable Abib, said he's privileged to be the only Muslim in leadership. Today we are empathizing with Muslims and we are saying no. Mr. Speaker, we may not be fasting, but when your brothers are fighting, empathize with them. Based on that, Mr. Speaker, 10 people will speak from each side. But we are still making a submission to you that Right Honorable Speaker, because we came here at 6 o'clock, it's 7:31, we are still here, and tomorrow we are coming again. At least there is no timeline on this item. So, honorable colleagues, let's adjourn. Let's have ample time tomorrow. The whole Ghana is watching to see how we are going to debate on this ministerial nominee. It is not like the ordinary one. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Honorable members, to guide me to take the decision on the numbers. How many minutes per person to debate? How many minutes? How many minutes?
Mr. Speaker,
Yes.
we propose
Leadership.
We propose 5 minutes.
5 minutes.
Yes, 5 minutes. Yes, 5 minutes. And Mr. Speaker,
how many minutes do you propose?
we stand by our 1 for the motion. We stand by our 1, and we propose 5 minutes. Yes.
Yes. How many minutes?
Mr. Speaker, the report is a 62-page report. At least 10 minutes. Every member who gets the opportunity to speak should be given at least 10 minutes to speak.
Honorable members, I have listened to your submissions. I will permit 3 pairs each caucus at 10 minutes per person. That will take us to 1 hour. Then after that, we'll take the next step. My proposal is that we'll take the decision tomorrow, but we'll finish the debate today. 3 from each side of the House, making 6. 10 minutes each. 10 minutes each. 3. Honorable members, motion has been moved and seconded. Is now for the debate of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me thank the appointment committee for the report. And Mr. Speaker, as I go through the report, very clear to me that the ministers have been vetted based on the Constitution, Article 78. Mr. Speaker,
Honorable members, I repeat, motion has been moved and seconded. Is now for the debate of the House.
thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes.
Mr. Speaker, let me thank the Appointment Committee for the report. Mr. Speaker, first of all, Mr. Speaker, if you look at the appointment, it was very, very clear, Mr. Speaker, that we had appointment one to the local government ministry, and Mr. Speaker, we already have a local government minister.
The House is
Mr. Speaker,
there's no order in the House.
I'll start with the nominee for the Ministry of Trade and Industry, Honorable Katie Hammond. Mr. Speaker,
I can give mine to you.
I have told the Honorable Katie Hammond, who worked at the Energy Ministry as a Deputy Energy Minister for a very long time. Mr. Speaker, clearly, the Minister...
Sit down.
Honorable members, please resume your seats. Debate to continue.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I started talking about the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the nominee, Katie Hammond. Mr. Speaker, I talked about his experience at the Ministry of Energy. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry of Trade and Industry is a very critical ministry. And Mr. Speaker, a lot of questions were asked of the nominee when he was asked about the issue of our excessive importation of almost everything. This is what the minister said. He said he agreed and that we should cut back and make sure that we can reduce our imports, almost $10 billion in imports. But Mr. Speaker, it was very remarkable when he said that the government had already met and they were talking about strategies to address a huge import bill. And a question was asked of him about the one district, one factory policy that clearly was aimed at reducing imports, making sure we can cut back on imports, making sure that our exports will increase. And it was very clear from his answer and from the step the government has said that was confirmed by the Ministry of Finance that the one district, one factory has been a monumental failure after we have pumped almost over $10 billion, not only on tax exemptions and other government support. Mr. Speaker, if you look at the objectives that were set for that policy, one district, one factory, to create employment, to increase export, to basically cut back on our import. Mr. Speaker, the basic items, whether it's rice, whether it's oil, almost everything we import. And it was clear that that one district, one factory has been a monumental failure. Mr. Speaker, he talked about another important issue which has to do with the challenges we've had with foreigners who have been competing with Ghanaians in our trade industry. And Mr. Speaker, he quite frankly really made reference to this problem that has really not been resolved. And this is an area that we have to really look at. But Mr. Speaker, fundamentally, one of the points about these appointments, all these 6 ministers, that these are, especially most of them are our colleagues. But our point is that this government who has run us to where we are, as we speak, our country, as everybody knew, have moved from 120 billion in debt and we are over 600 billion. We are now at a debtor country, over 600 billion in debt. The government is now, as we know, going through a debt exchange program, Mr. Speaker. But clearly, what everybody has called on this government to do is to take steps to reduce its bloated size of government and take steps to make the people of Ghana and all the people who have invested in Ghana, who are sacrificing, feel that this government is taking some responsibility in this crisis we find ourselves. Clearly it is not. And we believe, for example, Mr. Speaker, we specifically talked about the ministries and some of where the ministries are going. Mr. Speaker, where on earth will this government send another minister to the Ministry of Local Government? The Ministry of Local Government already have a substantive minister. Mr. Speaker, we've even taken the Minister of Sanitation, which is a main function of local government, out of the Ministry of Local Government. Yet one of the nominees, our good friend, the longest deputy minister, is being nominated as a minister to the local government. Mr. Speaker, clear duplication and waste. We have said in this debate, Mr. Speaker, that these ministers are a clear duplication and that this government must reduce its size. It's ironic, Mr. Speaker, to hear that the former president, John Mahama, has made it clear. This government is at 86 ministers. It was at 110 and now 86. Still way out, very wasteful, and a long list of other appointees that cannot be justified. So clearly, Mr. Speaker, we believe this was a clear opportunity for the government to have realigned some of these ministries and cut back on these bloated appointments. Mr. Speaker, on the issue of illegal mining, the Minister of Agriculture was asked about it. He talked and lamented about water bodies and how terrible they are across the country. Every district we've gone to. Mr. Speaker, if you recall, President Akufo-Addo said he had basically put down his presidency on the fight against Galamsey. Again, in this area, I'm sure he's the first to admit that that effort has been a failure. We're listening to the former Minister of Environment, Science and Technology, Mr. Speaker, an open indictment of the government, and he said that from the Flagstaff House all the way down, that everybody was engaged in Galamsey. I'm not saying it. He said that publicly. Mr. Speaker, that is very unfortunate. And we must take steps, Mr. Speaker. Yesterday we were talking about the National Day of the Forest and the things that we must do as a country to protect our forests and to protect our water bodies. And its implication to our country's future, its implication to food production, its implication for our farmers and for cocoa production. No wonder we find ourselves in where we are, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I'll take you to page 27 of the report, Mr. Speaker. And in page 27 of the report, Mr. Speaker, I will quote, when asked to state his views on course of his Excellency the President to cut down on the size of his appointment in the wake of Ghana's economic challenge, the nominee stated that he is not the appointing authority but understands the reasoning behind it. Mr. Speaker, there cannot be any reason, as I've stated, there cannot be any reason why we should have those bloated numbers that we have. Mr. Speaker, I think the Minister of Chieftaincy, the nominee for the Minister of Chieftaincy, also lamented on the issue of chieftaincy and how important it is. But he talked about our critical issue in this country, and that has to be dispute, land issues, land litigation. Mr. Speaker, that is an area that must be addressed and must be addressed well, because, Mr. Speaker, they did a study and asked the critical constraint of our country, and it has to do with how we manage land, and the disputes across the country, chieftaincy disputes across the country, has to do with land. And Mr. Speaker, this ministry is a very serious one, and we must really look at it. But, Mr. Speaker, more importantly, Mr. Speaker, how the issue of Galamsey is also connected with all these areas where chieftaincy disputes are, is an area that we also must talk about. Mr. Speaker, I think that clearly, Mr. Speaker, the other minister, the deputy minister, was asked a very interesting question about a recent policy of government on gold for oil, Mr. Speaker. And it's an issue we have to talk about. And I've stated it clearly that I do not know anywhere in this world where you take your gold and you go and they give you gallons of oil. We know that the issue has always been how we manage forests, because we use a lot of resources to buy oil, especially for
dollars. Just less than a minute.
Because we use dollars, we need to find a way to protect for ring-fence dollars to be able to get crude oil. But, Mr. Speaker, it is very, very clear to me that that policy must be refined, and nobody should be claiming clearly that crude prices or petroleum prices have gone down because of this policy. We recently probed into it, and it was very clear to us that, frankly, the oil that has been imported in this country through this policy is less than even 5%, Mr. Speaker. So it cannot be that it's because of, as the Vice President said, it's because of him or it's because of the policy. But clearly, it has to do with the fact that crude prices are internationally coming down. Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by making it clear and emphasizing our stand that it is very clear the people of Ghana have called on this government that the size of government is abnormal, it has to be reduced, and we believe that this is an opportunity to cut back. So it's very clear, Mr. Speaker, as I conclude, we love these our friends we have worked with them in Parliament. But in the principal stand, Mr. Speaker, they've been appointed at the wrong time in a bloated government, and we cannot support that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Yes, Honourable Member. Are you on your feet to contribute to a debate? Yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity to add my voice to motion number 8. Mr. Speaker, I had the opportunity to listen to the nominees. I've had the opportunity to read the 63-page report ably presented by the first Deputy Speaker. And I believe all the nominees are colleagues. We know them. We know their competence. They earn their salaries as members of Parliament, and I believe they can serve this country well. And I ask the House to approve of them to serve this country of us. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honourable Blackwell.
I'm most grateful, Right Honourable Speaker. Right Honourable Speaker, in contributing to the motion, I want to place on record that after going through the 63-page report, there are a litany of matters that require editorial work. And because of time, Mr. Speaker, I will appeal that we have an arrangement where we can make corrections probably after the deliberation. Some of them are quite major issues that will require corrections, and I hope that probably someone at the clerk's office will contact us so that we can effect the necessary corrections. Having said that, Mr. Speaker, our country is at the crossroads. We are faced with the worst economic crisis in living memory. Terminologies that were hitherto unknown in the political lexicon of our country are now a normal feature. Words like debt restructuring, domestic debt exchange program, financial haircuts, pensioner bond holders, individual bond holders, all up in arms about haircuts and how they cannot have access to their life savings, to their investments. Mr. Speaker, these are times that will have required in any country where there is sensitive leadership, empathetic leadership, it will have required that we will not be gathered here today discussing appointments of ministers and an increase in the ministerial numbers. Because if you do the analysis, by having a new minister of state at the local government ministry, we are adding on. We are going to have more ministers. And Mr. Speaker, at this time, as we speak, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the Finance Minister of our country, is gone to China, begging. He is begging for debt restructuring. Our President, only a few days ago in the message on the State of the Nation, was reporting to us how the begging with the Paris Club, begging with China, how it appears to be going well, and that he is quite hopeful that by end of this month, March, we will secure a $3 billion bailout from the IMF, even though, by all indication, that won't happen. We are not even featuring on the IMF Executive Board calendar. So, Mr. Speaker, how on earth, when everybody is saying, including diplomats, and what the President does to them, you are begging them, you want their empathy, you want their money, you want their debt forgiveness. And they say, okay, we hear you. You too, show good faith, show good leadership, lead by example, reduce the size of your government, and you say they are meddling in your affairs. Meanwhile, you went to them. They were sitting at there somewhere, as we say, in Ghana. You went to them begging, they are advising you, and you say, you listen. CSOs, the religious organizations of our country, I have read statements from the Catholic Bishop Conference, from the Pentecostal and Charismatic Council, from Organized Labor, TUC. Everybody is saying, President Akufo-Addo, reduce the number of your ministers. Mr. Speaker, if you read Article 76 of our Constitution, it provides there shall be a cabinet which shall consist of the President, the Vice President, and not less than 10, and not more than 19 ministers of state. Mr. Speaker, this country can be run by 19 ministers by our Constitution. I read page 49 of this report, and one of the nominees, Honorable Amin Anta, was saying that there is no ceiling, there is no cap, so the President can do whatever he wants. Page 49 of this report. Mr. Speaker, how reckless can we be? Already, as we speak, Mr. Speaker, we are grappling with hordes of strange portfolios at the presidency. I hold in my hands the 2021 presidential staffers list presented to this House. We have as many as 337 political appointees at the presidency. Why? Why, Mr. Speaker? And some of the portfolios, Mr. Speaker, if you come to page 15, overseer of the National Cathedral. When, Mr. Speaker, I have overseen the National Cathedral more than anybody. And yet I am not being paid for that. Somebody is being paid at the presidency as overseer of the National Cathedral. We have a church relations manager, diaspora church mobilization officer. We have focal person, La Francophonie, technical director, La Francophonie, coordinator, monitoring evaluation secretariat, coordinator, special development initiative secretariat. Mr. Speaker, you come to page 24 of the list, and there are even more scandalous portfolios. Youth Ambassador for Diaspora Affairs, Mr. Obin Bediaku. You have Operations Officer. You have Program Director. Then you have Senior Program Officer. Then you have Program Manager, Manager Operations. I mean, all kinds of nebulous, amorphous positions. Mr. Speaker, 337. Where are we going? Already between last year and this year, a whopping 82 million Ghana cedis has been added, Mr. Speaker, to government expenditure. We cannot continue this way, Mr. Speaker. We cannot continue this way. That is why this side has said, as a matter of principle, that we will have nothing to do. You see, it's not about the persons involved. They are colleagues. We know them. We've worked with them. One of them is the chairman of my own committee, the Honorable Brian Champon. We have a lot going together. We all belong to the Odadia fraternity and all of that. It's not about him. It's about the principle, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as we speak, there are ministries in this country that can be merged. Why in this time of economic crisis should we have Ministry of Agric different from Ministry of Fisheries and Aquaculture? Can't we merge it? Why should we have information and communication separate? A few years ago, it was one ministry. Why should we have sanitation and local government? It used to be one ministry. Why should we have railways and transport, separate ministries? Why? Why? When senior citizens are up in arms, I read their statement they issued a few days ago that the finance ministers pledged that they will be paid. A pledge made in this house when we debated the domestic debt exchange program. The finance minister has defaulted. They are waiting for their coupons. They don't have it. And we have all these ministries. Can't we make chieftaincy and tourism? Why should we have these separate ministries? So, Mr. Speaker, it's the height of insensitivity. It's the height of lack of empathy, the height of cruelty, that in the midst of this disaster that they have inflicted upon us, they want to inflict more, Mr. Speaker. So, Mr. Speaker, I have read the literature. When Jamaica was going through a similar debt restructuring program, when they ran into economic crisis, apart from the finance minister resigning, the governor resigning, the prime minister resigning, they identified as many as 40 institutions, ministries, departments, and agents. 40, not 14, for the avoidance of doubt. 40. And they slashed them, did away with them, downsized. And that is how they got the public confidence. And the people came along. Yes, we know times are tough, times are hard. But leadership should lead by example, Mr. Speaker. This is not the time to do yenti obia. And as for me, I'm just appointing and I'll keep appointing. Mr. Speaker, we cannot continue this way. And that is why I salute colleagues on this side who are standing resolute with the Ghanaian people, with civil society, with organized labor, with the diplomatic corps, who are all urging the president to downsize, to cut, and to slash his obscenely obese, the elephant pine size of government. We cannot continue this way. Finally, Mr. Speaker, I want to draw attention to Article 79 of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, what has been the convention? Mr. Speaker, Article 79 provides that the president may, in consultation with the Minister of State and with the prior approval of Parliament, appoint one or more deputy ministers to assist the minister in the performance of his functions. Mr. Speaker, what has been the practice consistent with this provision of the Constitution is that when you don't have a substantive minister, all presidents, and I've checked from the days of President Rawlings, they wait for the substantive minister to be appointed, vetted by Parliament, approved, and then they are consulted before deputy ministers are appointed. In this case, for the first time in this country's history, the president has, when there was no substantive minister for trade, the president has appointed a deputy minister of trade. No consultation. And this is the first time we are having a former attorney general as president. And this is what he's doing. Yes, we know it's a may, but best practice. No. Best practice. I know it's a may, but best practice. No. What has been the tradition? President Rawlings, President Kufuor, President Mills, President Mahama. What is the rush for? What is the indecent haste about? Why can't you wait for Honorable Katie Hammond, who I pray does not get the votes and does not succeed, because we must reduce the number of ministers? What does it take to wait and be compliant with this provision?
Your time is up.
So, Mr. Speaker, I thank you for your indulgence. We will continue to vote against these ministers. It's about the principle. It is time to reduce the number of ministers and be sensitive to the plight of suffering Ghanaians. I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
I come back to the right. Yes, Deputy Majority Leader.
I said, Mr. Speaker, just for the record, our colleague who made a submission just before I got on my feet had made some constitutional submission. Mr. Speaker, with the greatest respect, he sought to suggest that His Excellency is in breach of the Constitution. Mr. Speaker, he should not mislead himself and others. Mr. Speaker, having said that, I have nothing more useful to add. We close our second slot, and the Majority Leader will have a bite on our third slot. Thank you so much.
The third person from my left, who is going to be the third? You have said 3, and so 2 have spoken. It's left with 1 person. Yes, Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I thought the 3 you gave us exclude the leadership. So that the minority leader and the majority leader can have an opportunity to also speak to the matter. Mr. Speaker, so 3, and then the leadership can speak. Because, Mr. Speaker, that will mean that I will not be given the opportunity to speak as ranking member of the
What
committee.
persuaded you to think that way? The words were clear and unambiguous. 3 from each side of the House. What did you get from these simple words to think that after the 3, the leadership will be given opportunity? Minority Leader, you haven't persuaded me at all. If it's a request that, because you heard your colleagues from the majority side, that the Majority Leader will be their 3rd person, and he will conclude their debate. That is what the Deputy Majority Leader concluded with. Oh, you have men here, plenty men and women, they are here. Yes. So, you have to take up the battle and then conclude it.
Yes,
Minority Leader, are you not?
Mr. Speaker, I am making an appeal to you to allow the leadership to conclude on this matter. Mr. Speaker, if our colleagues are not ready to debate, they can give their slot to us. They can give their slot to us, and we'll use it appropriately. So I'm begging of you, please give us your slot, and we'll use it appropriately. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Minority Chief Whip.
Mr. Speaker.
Are you going to debate?
Mr. Speaker, no.
All right.
I want to make a request in support of the minority leader's position. Mr. Speaker, fortunately, our colleagues on the other side are not very enthusiastic about the debate. So we are not going to take much time. I'm making an appeal that you allow, after our third person have debated, our leader, the ranking member on the committee, to make the final submission on the part of the minority. It's an appeal we are making to you, Mr. Speaker. It's very dear to us, very important to us, Mr. Speaker.
I will not renege on my decision. So if the ranking member is going to speak on your side, that will be the third person, and we will proceed. Ranking member, you may make your contribution now. Deputy Majority Leader, one day I will give a directive that this your hand that you've been swinging, it will be cut off. Yes, ranking member, you may contribute to the debate. That's the end of your slot. 3 from each side of the house. So your leader will do the third. Okay, go on.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, 4 years ago, on the 29th of March 2019, the NPP government, under the leadership of His Excellency the President, held the Kenke Party at the Ministry of Finance. And the Kenke Party was to celebrate what they call a hat trick. The Speaker, at the time, they described the hat trick as successful Eurobond issuance. 1, 2, completion of an IMF program. And 3, CD appreciation. The Speaker, 4 years yesterday, Ghana has defaulted in the payment of that Eurobond that we issued. 4 years yesterday, we are begging China, in fact, as we speak, our finance minister is in China, begging the Chinese taxpayer and the Chinese authorities to forgive us debt that Ghana government has borrowed from China. So, Speaker, we are struggling to meet the IMF conditionalities 4 years on. The Ghanaian cedi has depreciated 20% in the first 2 months of the year 2023, 4 years on. So, Speaker, this calls for a major case study. This calls for a major case study. So, Speaker, if our minister leaves China, he'll be heading to Paris with the hope that he will beg European banks and European sovereign agencies to forgive us in terms of debt that we have accumulated from them. We are going to ask for debt forgiveness from the European government, Mr. Speaker, before our minister will be heading to Washington and to beg IMF to give us a program. Mr. Speaker, Ghana is in a massive economic difficulty. Mr. Speaker, this calls on us to act differently. This calls on us as a country to actually behave differently. Mr. Speaker, the very people that we are asking them to forgive us in terms of the debt that we have accumulated from them are calling on us. Not long ago, the German ambassador has said to us that Ghana's size of government is overbloated. he has said to us that there is room for us to reduce the size of government and government expenditure. Mr. Speaker, you can't ask others to contribute. Particularly, Mr. Speaker, the international community to contribute at the time that you are not ready to contribute. Mr. Speaker, the German ambassador said, you cannot go to the international community and say, I need help, but I'm not willing to cut the size of my government and my own budget expenditure. Mr. Speaker, this is profound. This is profound. We are asking the German taxpayer, to actually forgo the investment they have made in the Ghanaian economy, yet we are not ready to sacrifice. Mr. Speaker, our position is that the president must act. The government needs to act to save the Ghanaian economy from collapse. But this can only be done. This can only be done if we send the right signal. Mr. Speaker, what is the right signal? The right signal is for us to send a signal that we are reducing the size of government, and to get the Ghanaian taxpayer to be aware that the government is ready to do the heavy lifting. So, Speaker, all what we are doing now, we are transferring the burden of economic difficulty from us to the ordinary Ghanaian and the people that have invested in our economy. That is all what we are doing. That is all what we are doing. So, Speaker, we stand with the people of Ghana, and we are urging our colleagues, the MPP members of Parliament, to stand for Ghana and not to stand for your colleagues. So, Speaker, the nominees are our colleagues, but the principle is that it is not about them, it is about the Republic of Ghana. There may be our colleagues and our friends, but it's not about them. So, Speaker, some of them are relatives, but it's not about them. And I call on you that look them in their faces and vote against them for the Republic of Ghana, for the future of our country. So, Speaker, this vote should not be a vote by the minority alone. We are sending a signal to the international community. We are sending a signal to the Ghanaian taxpayer that we care. We are sending a signal to everyone that we in the NDC, we care. Join us and let's reject them. And colleagues, I urge you, please reject the appointment. Reject the appointment in the name of Ghana, because Ghanaians are watching us. The situation out there isn't good. Our economy is in bad shape, a very bad shape. It calls on all of us to sacrifice. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we are ready. We are ready to sacrifice. And we are calling on them to join on us to sacrifice by rejecting the nominees and to send a signal to the president that, Mr. Speaker, we are ready to act. Mr. Speaker, it is sad. It is sad. It is clearly sad, because, Mr. Speaker, it looks like the government of the day doesn't seem to care and doesn't seem to pay attention to public opinion. Doesn't seem to pay attention to public opinion. Public opinion is clear on this matter. For once, the people of Ghana have united, and have sent a message to the ruling class that they are very much concerned about the way the country is being managed. Mr. Speaker, it is our responsibility as the ruling class to send a strong signal to the people of Ghana that we care. And that is why, Mr. Speaker, we are taking this action. The action is for the Republic of Ghana. It is for the people of Ghana. And the NDC is noted to be the political party that stands with the people of Ghana. We will stand for the people of Ghana, united as 136 members of Parliament. Mr. Speaker, we reject this nomination. We reject this nomination and call on you, Mr. Speaker, to set the podium for us to be ready to vote tomorrow. And Mr. Speaker, tomorrow we will come here and vote against the nomination in full. And we believe that this singular gesture will send the right signal to the people of Ghana that all of us, we care. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Majority Leader, as the third and final contributor. 10 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, just to say that I lend my support for this House to approve of the 30th report of the Appointment Committee on His Excellency the President's nomination for appointment as ministers, ministers of state, and a deputy minister. Mr. Speaker, I've heard my colleagues say to us that the number of ministers is overly bloated. Mr. Speaker, today we have what we are going to have with these additions. I only have a total of 86 ministers. Mr. Speaker, at the time of the Mills Mahama administration, at a point in time, you had 76 ministers. That time, there were only 10 regions and not 16 regions. Mr. Speaker, what does it mean? What does it mean? If you subtract 6 from 86, the number now climbs down to 80. You have 76. The fall is colossal. Can you believe this? Mr. Speaker, we have seen them before, their own administration. And yet outside there, the noise that they are generating, you have 76, this government, minus the additional 10 regions, will have 80. An addition of platform. That is monumental. Can you believe that? Mr. Speaker, as for what my colleague, the Honorable Kujetu Ablakwa, is saying in referring to Article 79, what does Article 79 provide? Article 79 provides that the President, in appointing deputy ministers, shall consult the Minister of State. Mr. Speaker, when these ministers, whose possessions that we are filling, resigned, ministers of state were appointed to hold over as ministers. Mr. Speaker, read the Constitution well. So when the President appoints the minister who is in charge, it's in fulfillment of Article 79. Unless your understanding of Article 79 is different. Unless your understanding of Article 79 is different. Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, and I heard my colleague, the minority leader, in commencing his argument, refer to an MPP government. The government of Ghana is the government of Ghana. The government of Ghana is the government of Ghana. It is administration of the MPP, not MPP government. The government is the government of Ghana. You should understand that. Mr. Speaker, and who was talking about depreciation of the city? Who is talking about the depreciation of the city? I talked about from Mills's time to President Mohammed's time. The city depreciated altogether from when you assumed the reins of government to when you left. The city has depreciated by 385%. Today, the depreciation is in the region of 300%. Not the best. One would admit, not the best. But compared to your own performance. Compared to your own performance. Mr. Speaker, and then somebody said, the Honorable Deputy Minority Leader was saying that the 1D, 1F is a monumental failure. I think we've dealt with this when we're debating the President's message on the state of the nation. 106 factories on stream with 148 at different levels of construction. That is a monumental failure. Your own, the only one that we're able to do, Commander Sugar Factory. Where is it? Only one. And you are saying that our efforts, our trade and industry is a monumental failure. In any event, if we should judge by the performance of manufacturing in the country, Mr. Speaker, the record speaks for itself. In 2014, under your tenure, when you said that industry was faring well, 2014 industry grew at 1.1%. Under your watch, 2015 it was 1.2%. 2016 2016 it was 4.3%. After your watch, the last 3 years, industry grew at 2.2%. I mean, where from this? Where from this? The speaker, Honorable James Abeji is watching. He said, "Why am I praying up?" He is the master of that. He's the master of arms throwing. With a figure. So look at that. The first 3 years under Kufuor, 15.6, 10.5 in 2018, 6.4 in 2019, 10.8%. With a figure, manufacturing under your watch. In industry, manufacturing holds the key. Under your watch, 4.8% in the last 3 years. Even during the COVID years, the last 3 years of manufacturing, the growth of manufacturing is 4.8%. Under your watch, it was 4.3%. So when you hear people talk about the abysmal performance of industry and manufacturing, it's laughable. We're not referring to the figures. The figures tell no lie. The figures tell no lie. I believe going back to re-argue is of no consequence. And I will just plead that we approve of the ministers and move on. And the Speaker, when we conclude the debate, as I'm concluding, I will entreat you to put the question and we shall decide today on the ministers. The Speaker, thank you very much.
Honorable members, we have come to the conclusion of the debate, and the question is to be put tomorrow. I proceed accordingly to adjourn the House to tomorrow at 10 in the phone room. The House is adjourned.
So Parliament has adjourned after such a contentious day of sitting in Parliament today. The majority MPs expected and they wanted a vote to happen today, but it did not happen. The Speaker has adjourned the House tomorrow. What we expect to happen tomorrow is that the ballot boxes and the booth will be brought in and MPs will be asked to vote. NPP MPs are livid about the situation. They clearly wanted the vote to happen, and they say that they do not understand why the Speaker of Parliament will adjourn the House to tomorrow. NDC MPs are staying in the chamber. Our understanding is that they want to do a caucus meeting. They want to have some conversation as to some of the key issues that have come up so far. But it's been a contentious day in Parliament where MPs have been debating the report of the Appointments Committee on the President Akufo-Addo's Ministerial Nominees. The expectation of the minority was that they were going to vote today, and they had said always that they were going to reject President Akufo-Addo's nominees. The NPP MPs, on the other hand, have said that they wanted to stay and vote. The Speaker of Parliament early on gave them about 1 hour to go and deliberate and then come back to the floor for a decision to be taken. It took close to 4 hours. No decision was taken, and then as about almost 7:30, the Speaker of Parliament returned and then asked that the debate is continued for the debate to conclude. The debate has now concluded. The only thing left is for members of Parliament to go out there and vote on the key issues that is said to be discussed, whether or not KT Hammond, whether or not MP for Inshiaso Stephen Amwa, whether or not Obi Amwa, whether or not Amin Adams, whether or not Stephen Asamoah Boateng, whether or not all these persons that President Akufo-Addo has appointed as ministers of state or deputy ministers or ministers of state at substantive ministries will get to have their scrolls of office given to them by the president. That fate is now in the hands of MPs, and it's been such a long day of sitting. It's 8:30 by the clock now, and MPs are now headed home. They are going to return early tomorrow, 10 o'clock a.m. in the forenoon. And the expectation will be that they would have to return and vote on the nominees as the president did. They have been vetted. The minority say, as a matter of principle, they do not want to approve those specific persons to become ministers. Not necessarily because they are not qualified, but because President Akufo-Addo's government is bloated, in their words. Today we saw here in Parliament, he just left the national chairman of the National Democratic Congress, Johnson Eksedu Nketia. He was here together with the Greater Accra Regional Chairman of the NDC. Sami Jemfi was also here. Early on, we had Justin Frimpong Kodua. Justin Frimpong Kodua is still here, and while he's talking to some of his colleagues, and the minority, they're having some sort of a caucus meeting to try and prime themselves ahead of that contentious, critical vote tomorrow. The main business today should have been the 3 tax bills, the revenue measures, but Parliament did not even make time to deal with that because of this matter of the ministerial nominees. Parliament is set to go on break next week, and so these last few days, tomorrow is the last sitting for the week, then next week MPs will be expecting that some of these key issues will be taken. The ministerial nominees would expect that they will be approved before Parliament goes on break. We did have an understanding that the majority wanted to do some trade, and that they wanted to help the majority reject Electoral Commission CI, which would have made the Ghana card the sole identity document, and so they were willing to actually sign some undertaking to back that. But the minority clearly will not support that and will not do that, for which reason they did not have that arrangement. And so the House has just adjourned. You see a lot of conversations still happening on the floor. Caucuses meeting, haggling at each other, try to prepare themselves for what will be a contentious sitting tomorrow, where a vote will expect to happen. Not only the vote, but also the controversial tax measures. Those 3 tax measures that the minority have said will collapse businesses will all be debated, and the majority side, the leader, beckon on his colleagues to come closer for some meeting of a sort. So that has been the scene here in Parliament. Very soon we'll hand you over back to the studio. MPs clearly not in agreement as to some of the things that have been happening. My name is Kweku Asante. This has been our live, continuous coverage of scenes and the proceedings here in Parliament. Tomorrow we'll be back again, same time at 10 o'clock a.m. in the forenoon, where MPs will be back to continue the debate. And it's expected that a vote will happen. You will see the Electoral Commission boxes, a vote will be taken, and that decision will be taken.
We're bringing you live proceedings from Parliament, and you heard there our Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Quick Asante giving us a wrap of events for today. It's been a long day in Parliament. We're hoping that the debate will happen. The debate actually did happen, but the voting has been postponed and to tomorrow. And the Speaker, as it stands now, has adjourned sitting to Friday, and would still bring you proceedings from there. We've been seeing in your shorts, at least, the MPs there deliberating. Some happy about the decision, others unhappy about it. One of the nominees there was in your short, Obi Yamwa, was in Parliament. I was hoping that we could check on with our parliamentary correspondent on the presence of the other nominees, some of them who are also MPs, whether they were in Parliament throughout the entire sitting and the debate. So we're bringing you proceedings from Parliament on what actually transpired today. We set out to also take a look at the 3 new taxes as part of the revenue mobilization exercise in securing an IMF deal, but it appears that also has been in limbo. That's not happening tonight. But once Parliament resumes sittings tomorrow, hopefully after the debate, we'll get to see that voting and know whether these ministers or the nominees for the various ministerial appointments will be approved or not. This is the JoyNews channel.